Magdalena and Richard, are you going to put your videos on?
I am in a second.
Okay, thank you. Take
You're
your time.
welcome. Okay.
Okay, so with everyone here, we will call the meeting to order. And I believe, Amanda, since we don't have a secretary present, you are acting as secretary. So would you please call the roll of the commission members?
Absolutely. So I have
I'm on the line now.
Helen Wilson,
Present.
Brooke Bauer, absent. Chuck Cohn, absent. Magdalena Dwork,
Present.
Jeff Kasmer,
Here.
Shelley Rubin, absent, and Richard Terrett.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we'll get this meeting underway. We have one visitor, Pam Yulberg. Is that right? So welcome. Do you have any business before the commission that you want to present?
No. But I am going to be having requests for permits probably at the next meeting, which is why I'm attending to see kind of how
Okay.
it rolls.
Okay, and we have our petitioners, Mr. and Mrs. Ott, and I'm sorry, who?
My name is Andrew Venamore. I am presenting. I'm the general contractor for the project, and I'm also presenting this evening with the office.
Oh, okay. First question, is there any old business?
Oh,
Helen, before we move on with the agenda, do you mind if we do the COVID statement that we use for virtual meetings? If you don't have it in front of you, I can rattle it off, but just so we have that for the record.
Thank you very much for reminding me. We've been doing this for so long.
We've been on a break.
So due to the statewide disaster declaration relating to COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic declared by the governor, this public hearing is being conducted pursuant to that declaration and the public is invited to attend this Zoom conference. Is that sufficient, Betsy, or do I need?
Yes, and I believe that the reason we're holding the meeting virtually is because there had been a determination by the chair that it was not feasible to have an in-person meeting or to allow the public to be physically present at Village Hall because of the space constraints there and in light of the pandemic. And also just a reminder to everyone, I think Amanda already mentioned, but the meeting is being recorded as a requirement to comply with the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you very much. So also, in order to prevent any feedback, just logistically, if you're not speaking, it's helpful if you mute yourself so that we don't get feedback from anyone. Today we are here, then we'll move on to new business. And today we're here for a public hearing on a matter presented by the owners of 7033 North Willow Springs Road. This is a consideration of a request for a variation of the side yard setback requirements normally set in an R2 district from 40 feet down to 5.5 feet to accommodate the construction of an attached garage. The garage will be attached to the home by a 37-foot breezeway. We'll begin by having our village temporary planner through the planning department of the village of Mundelein present a brief synopsis of the request and the planning department's review of that request. So Amanda.
thank you. So I just want to say it's a pretty simple request, and thank you for having me here. This was started by Jim before he retired, so he did a lot of the review, but I looked over the documents before submitting them for your case review. The location of the neighborhood, has a lot of smaller lot sizes. At some of it was built in the county and then next into the village of Long Grove. So, you know, a lot of those houses and lots and setbacks are much smaller than what is typically found within Long Grove for newer construction. So, you know, the request is really not out of character in terms of what you see in the neighborhood itself and the surrounding properties. And I know that the petitioner has prepared a presentation to kind of go in a little bit more detail on their thoughts as to why they're constructing what they're constructing and the distance and the need for the breezeway. But certainly, you know, this seems to be kind of a regular accessory structure proposal for that style and type of house and subdivision.
Does anyone have any questions of Amanda regarding the report which was submitted to each of us for review before we have the petitioner's presentation? Jeff, any questions?
I had to unmute myself. No questions.
Okay, Magdalena, any questions? And
No.
Richard, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, so we will turn it over then to the petitioners to present their request for a variation in the R2 district.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we need to be sworn in at all for the process?
Thank you. Yes. Would you raise your right hands? Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is true? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
been
I
many
just wanted to
months.
make sure, that's all.
You're absolutely correct.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this evening. As Amanda pointed out, and I think in the documentation that we provided as part of the application process, you'll notice that the case before you this evening is a relatively simple replacement of an existing detached garage. The idea behind this project is that the structure will accommodate the owner's RV that at the moment is located on the driveway, either directly in front of the house or adjacent to the side of the house in front of the old garage. Unfortunately, that structure that exists at the moment isn't sized adequately enough to be able to get the RV inside. And the owners are really interested in being able to get the vehicle rather inside so it's undercover, but equally as importantly, so it's not disrupting the residential nature of this neighborhood. Mr. Wright uses the vehicle pretty extensively to move around. He is handicapped, and the RV enables him to more efficiently move around the area. Certainly it's used a lot for recreational purposes, but it is something that he does use pretty frequently. So the goal of the project is to get the vehicle inside the structure so that it's not visible from the street and somewhat of an eyesore for the neighborhood. This will also, the way that the garage has been designed, and if you saw the plans, the vehicle bay on the right side, which would be the north side of the property, is actually a tall 12-foot door. And once the vehicle is inside, it will also enable Mr. Ott to be able to work on the RV as necessary. And that's what's driving both the height of the garage plus the width of it, so that he has some opportunity to work in there. In order separately to be able to facilitate access from, thanks Amanda, from the, I'm going to just go to the next drawing. In order to facilitate the access, so you can see there on the right side of the upper drawing, that's the overhead door that's the 12-foot high. The adjacent door is a little bit lower. That's for a potential vehicle in the future that would also enable Mr. Ott to gain access. It will be also will be a handicapped accessible vehicle. Amanda, would you mind just sliding up to the previous drawing? as you can see there, one of the big drivers for the project as well, based on Mr. being in a wheelchair, is being able to get from the back of the house to the garage in an undercover situation, so that during inclement weather, rain, snow, whatever it may be, that he has the opportunity to be able to take his wheelchair directly from the back door of the family room of the house and down the breezeway into the garage. Amanda, would you mind just sliding up one more onto the proposed site plan? You can see a little bit more clearly here what the design intent there is. So you can see the breezeway coming out the back of the family room, and then a right angle into where the service door is on the side of the garage. So that's one of the garage certainly is a big driver for the project, as we had mentioned before, as it ties to getting the vehicle inside off the street. But equally as important in this particular case is creating a situation where Mr. Ott can move from the back of the house to the garage on his wheelchair. Certainly, if it's raining heavily, he will get wet, but at least for the most part, he'll be protected as he's making that transition, which is a pretty critical piece for him, in order to be able to get into the garage safely. So as Amanda mentioned, the variation before you this evening is tied to that north side yard setback, the R2 zoning district that this property was annexed under in 1986 by the village, requires a 40-foot setback. So the property itself is 129 foot wide. 2 40-foot setbacks would obviously make a really small building envelope, and this home, similar to many others in this neighborhood, would obviously struggle to make that setback work in any situation. The current setback for the garage that exists on the property now is 5.1 feet. That's its minimum setback. We're increasing that a tiny amount. We're going to 5.5 feet. And in order to sort of lessen the extent of that encroachment, obviously, we certainly can't get to 40 feet unless the garage was in the location in the drawing you're looking at now. I estimated we'd have to probably push the garage back 60 feet from its current location in order to get to that point where it would meet the 40 feet. And obviously then we would have to swing the driveway around pretty extensively to be able to get into the front of the garage at that standpoint. So what that would do is obviously, make a mess of the backyard. The garage would essentially be sitting right in the middle of the property, some 60 to 70 feet back from where it stands now. So 100 feet back from the house. We'll start getting a little bit close to the septic field as well, but I think that might be able to be accommodated. But we would be adding another probably 1,000 to 1,500 square foot of impervious surface simply to get back there. So the idea is, as Amanda mentioned, is to keep the garage in roughly the same location as it exists now, and increase that setback just minimally, and essentially give us a more practical way to access the garage as opposed to dealing with the 40-foot setback. I just want to show the board some drawings that I'll put these up, and then I'll sort of read through them so everybody understands what they are. It's essentially a drawing of what you were looking at, some 3D renderings of the proposed garage. In that location there, I'm showing the floor plan. In the upper location, I'm showing the site plan that you've all seen. And in the middle there's just a little written piece. I'm just going to read that to you all. It says, we have reviewed the plans for the new Ott garage in Breezeway and have no objection to it. I had the Otts take these. There's two of them. One is for the neighbors directly to the north. That's David Rendon. And then there's also a second one for the neighbor directly to the south, Brian Prainer and Michelle Melnick. They were appraised. Obviously, I've sent them the certified mail anyway, but obviously, as everybody knows, when you see certified mail like that, there's a lot of question as to what the exact request is. So by preparing a drawing like this and showing the neighbors what we were intending to do, it gives them a little bit better appreciation of what the request is. So both neighbors to the north and south signed off on those. I sent those earlier to Amanda, so she has them, we can make those an official part of the record. She has those in an email format from earlier today. So at that point, if the board has any questions, we'd certainly be happy to answer them.
Okay. Commissioner Jeff Casimir, do you have any questions of the petitioners?
No, I looked at the property on the Google Maps, which is so helpful these days. I didn't have to take a ride over there, even though I kind of know the area. And that the garage is set back far enough where you really don't see it from the street. There's a lot of trees that set back pretty far. And essentially, we're just replacing one structure with another of approximately the same size. The third of a foot setback doesn't bother me at all. And they're gaining a little impervious surface with the walkway, but they're losing it on the size of the garage. So if there's no objection from any of the homeowners in the area, I have no problem with this.
Thank you. Commissioner Magdalena Dworak, do you have any questions?
I do not. I was just about to say the same thing that Commissioner Casimir said, that I Googled it and it does not seem like it's going to interfere with anything in any particular way. And now when I heard that the neighbors do not object, I have no objections and I have no questions.
And Commissioner Richard Terrett, do you have any questions of the petitioners?
No, I don't either. Yeah, I was pretty happy that it was replacing an existing structure without too much of an issue. So, and having the neighbors, like Magdalena said, okay with things, that sounds good to me.
Very good. I have no questions either. Commissioner Casimir said exactly what I would have said. I did drive by the property and noticed that where the garage is going, it's not that visible even from the road because it's partially behind the house. And I do note that this is right next door to a property we considered similar issues to in the recent past. The only question that I would ask, I noted that there was, it looked like a wrought iron fence on the property line. Is that taken into consideration in terms of your building?
Yeah, it will be. I talked to neighbor, they need fence for their dog. So we had to maintain that fencing. So putting up a safety fence during construction will be important.
Yeah, so we did discuss that. That actually came up probably 2 months ago now when the Arts went and spoke with the Rendones about it. The Rendones were loosely unaware of how much their fence was on the Arts property, but there was certainly discussion about how that would transpire through the construction phase. So from our standpoint, once the garage is down, we need to make sure, as Mr. Ott just mentioned, we need to make sure that we block that area off before we build, obviously, because now I'm moving a little bit further away from that fence too. We need to make sure that that's blocked off so that the dog doesn't escape. The discussion beyond that, because that's the Rendone's fence, is that they will need to make some sort of adjustments to close that off permanently, because it ultimately ends up being their fence. It just made sense that whenever that fence was put in, to just butt it in both at the front and the back of the subject garage. But because that fence is actually their Rendone's, they'll have to make sure that that gets replaced. We obviously will make sure that we keep it safe during the construction phase, and then they'll just have to do something about it beyond that point.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was a matter of discussion, so it didn't become a matter of dispute as the project went along. Okay, thank you. With that in mind and the presentation having been made, I would entertain a motion from one of the commissioners on this project.
Chairwoman Wilson, might I add one thing?
Yes,
You know, just so you know, there was responses to the standards for a variation that were included in the packet. So I
yes.
just want to make note of that so that it can become, you know, part of that record and consideration for the motion.
Betsy, did you draft a draft motion for us? Approval or disapproval?
I
for
didn't
this?
circulate one, but it would just be a motion to recommend approval of the requested side yard setback variation for the new detached garage and breezeway structure. And Amanda, were there any particular conditions that staff was recommending? Other than the recommendations are typically subject to final plan review and approval on the technical elements, and all that'll be included in as a
Yeah,
standard.
no, there weren't any additional considerations that were needed.
Okay, so then that would be the motion.
So based on Betsy's language, would someone like to move and second the motion?
I'll second it.
We
Someone
got to
else
make
can
it first.
They can just say they make the motion as stated on the record. You don't need to
Yes.
repeat it all, but someone needs to make the motion.
I move to approve the variation as stated on the record.
And I will now second that.
Thank you. So Magdalena has made the motion to approve the request for the variation, and Commissioner Richard Terrett has seconded it. Could we please have a roll call for the vote?
DeVore,
A.
Terrett,
Hey,
Wilson,
Yes?
Casmer,
Yes.
Okay, the motion has been unanimously approved by the quorum here present. So Mr. and Mrs. Ott, your project has been approved. It must now be presented to the trustees, and I believe that their next meeting is September 14th, next Tuesday. Is that enough? Is that ample time to get it all presented for the trustees' record, Amanda?
yeah, we should be able to, as long as the packets haven't been finalized and distributed. I'll have to find out from Greg if that's the case. So, but I'll communicate with you, Andrew.
Thanks,
and
Amanda.
let you know.
If it's not the 14th, would it just be the 28th?
Yes, that would be the following meeting.
Okay.
And just to clarify the procedure, this body, of course, is just a recommending body. So the motion does not actually approve the application, just passes on a favorable recommendation. Often the village board will, especially when it's a short turnaround time like this, hear a report from the plan commission and receive their recommendation. And then they would direct preparation of an ordinance that would be considered at the following meeting. Sometimes they do dispense with the 2 meeting requirement, but that's the typical order.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Mr. and Mrs. Ott or Andrew?
No, I don't. I thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you're free to continue with us in the meeting, or you're free to leave the meeting. It's totally up to you.
Wonderful. Thank you kindly to everybody. I think we will leave the meeting, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Thank you.
evening.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
you too. All right, so the next matter on our agenda would be approval of the minutes from the meeting that was held March 2nd, which explains why I've forgotten practically everything there is to know about conducting these meetings properly. It has been a while. Have you had a chance to review, and is there, can I entertain a motion to approve these minutes?
I will motion to approve the minutes as written with the usual corrections for any punctuation or spelling.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Commissioner Casimir and seconded by Commissioner Dvorak to approve the minutes of the board meeting, of the commission meeting on March 2nd. Amanda, could you take a roll, please?
Certainly. Casimir,
Aye.
Dvorak,
Hi.
Wilson,
Aye.
Tarrant.
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that. Are there, I note from the agenda that attendance at the September 14th meeting, I believe, would be Commissioner Dvorak. And at the September 28th meeting would be Commissioner Tarrant. And currently our next regular meeting, if any, is scheduled for October 5th. Are there any other matters that any of the commissioners would like to bring up at this time? Well, I think we've had an absolute record here. It is just 7:27 by my computer. I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so Commissioner Casimir has voted to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have to take a roll on this one?
I know it's silly, but when they're
Okay.
virtual meetings, technically, yeah.
Okay, we'll take a roll. Amanda, please.
Casimir,
Aye.
Tarrant,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Dvorak.
Hi.
Therefore, thank you so much, everyone, and I greatly appreciate your efforts to be here. We just made our quorum for this evening because of the Jewish holiday. Many were needed to be absent. So I very much appreciate your attendance this evening so that we could get this business taken care of. So with that, thank you, everyone. And we may or may not see you October 5th. It seems that our visitor is here preparing for some business that she believes will come before the Plan Commission. So we'll see if we see her again soon. Do you
Thank
have
for
any?
the opportunity to join the meeting, and I also live on Willow Spring Road, so
Oh, okay. A lot of efforts in that neighborhood. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a
you.
good evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night, all.
Night.